This two-parter of Snowfall ends on a satisfying conclusion, and when put together, they tell a very compelling story. It just takes a long walk, literally, to get there. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. Last episode ended with a tiger, so naturally, we have to begin with that said tiger. It's interesting. I know a lot of people had an issue with the tone of the last episode of Snowfall. I am one of them too. I thought it was tonally kind of all over the place. The taxidermist with the tiger thing felt very tacked on and goofy and unlike anything that we sort of have had in Snowfall history. And while we end up there too, and the tone is still off, it does sort of pay off, and I think it gives a pretty interesting parallel to what's happening in real life, which I'll get on at the back end of the episode. But we start the episode with Uso and Franklin still stuck in that cage, and Franklin trying to think of ways monetarily to get out of there, while Uso's coming up with ways. He's aware of the cage, kind of gets an idea of how everything works. So he takes his belt off, kind of jams the rig so that it can't open up, because basically the taxidermist is coming to feed his tiger with the two of them. Um, and so the gentleman has to get up on the cage and loses his footing after a little shake, and they get out of there after the tiger bites his leg off. The keys drop. For all of this to happen, for these comedy of errors to happen, it's very convenient that the tiger bites off the leg that happens to have the key. That they get the key. It's just it's sloppy writing. Honestly, I think it's just too easy to get out of that situation, and there are other ways to tell the story and get them from point A to point B than having this whole bit with the taxidermist and tiger. I just don't like it. It doesn't read well. The tiger point itself, I get works, but there are other ways to get them, because as soon as they leave that place, they're looking around, they're trying to find how to get back. Louis paging them. They get then caught by the SAs who were trying to steal the money that they were running from in the first place after they try to jack their car. So if you take that tiger beat out and just have them get caught again after like being on the run or hiding a bit, you can kind of still get to that same point. Even though that's what I initially thought, and I was like, oh, wow, we could have that long road could have been removed. The tiger does come back up and is a piece of what sort of gets them out of all this jam, but it feels goofy. So that's my only major complaint with this. The how we get to the final piece of this episode um, is much weaker than the actual getting to the end of the episode and what it pays off with. Jerome, Louis, Sissy, and V are all back in the Franklin compound, if you will, and they're trying to figure out what to do next. Jerome and Leon have gone off to try to find, as Jerome would call it, Tweedledee and Tweedledum, the strippers that tried to kill Louis a couple seasons ago, but it helped them out a little bit earlier because they know more about the ends of the streets, and Jerome sort of thinks that they may have something to do with it. They may be trying to get some retribution. They also are trying to find Peaches, who they just cannot locate. They can't find Peaches at all. He's nowhere to be seen. Sissy and V want to go be a part of this and want to help out in the search, but Jerome's like, I can't put you in danger because Franklin would lose. If he's fine, if he's good, he would lose if I put either of you in danger. So the two of them stay back and just start having a heart to heart and a conversation. And we learn that V comes from a version of this. Her mom was a con woman. That's how she was able to do the gun and the police thing, and then kind of like, oh my god, I'm pregnant, crying out. It's her life. She was a con woman, and so she sort of brought those skills back. And she has a heart to heart with Sissy and saying that, hey, I started to like the con woman, and we got in so deep to the point where then it started swallowing us whole and started consuming us. And she's like, now I'm back at square one of that, just in a different medium. While I'm not doing the con stuff, I'm doing this drug stuff, and I'm back here again. And her hands are shaking. She's starting to freak out, and Sissy's trying to console her and kind of just sees that there's more to her than what meets the eye. It's interesting. That doesn't necessarily derail me from the thought that she has something to do with any of this. Maybe not this, but her being a con woman now leans into that even more. But it's a little too obvious now. They've kind of, for me, have taken her off the board as having to do with anything, because when we see what happens at the end, she doesn't have really any connection to them, and it feels a little too clean to say that I'm a con woman, and then to actually be playing a con on Franklin. I think she's actually in it for real, and just trying to find a new way of life. We get back to Franklin and Uso, who are now tied up in a chair, getting interrogated the old fashioned way by a glove and getting punched senseless. Um, they both think they're gonna die. Like it's on the right, it's on the wall. They have a moment when those folks walk away and they're bleeding and they're just talking, and they basically are talking about the end. They know this is it. Um, and Franklin mentions his child. He's like, I'm supposed to have a sonogram today. He kind of mentions, and Uso's like, well, what are you gonna name it? They're sort of having that moment of like the final thoughts before all hell breaks loose. And then Franklin, who I will say consistently is a man who thinks on his feet. He knows that tiger is probably loose at that house. And he's like, hey, got an idea. And he tells the folks that I know where the money is. This is why they have him captured. They know that money's around. They don't know how much it is, but they know there's a lot of money, and they're trying to find out where he stashed it. So Franklin, quite frankly, is like, hey, I don't know the numbers of the house. It was dark. I don't remember it, but I can take you to it. I know where the house is, and I know where we stashed the money. So he takes three men with him to the location where the tiger house, if you will, the taxidermist house. And one of the youngest one, who initially did not run away, stays in the car as a lookout with the car running. And the other two, the OG and his number two, go back with Franklin. And then the tiger jumps out and mauls them. And then I think Franklin shoots one of them and runs. And then he holds the gun at gunpoint to the driver and puts him in the trunk of the car, and then he is freed. It works. It does. I don't need the tiger. There can be other ways to sort of get to this point. I feel like somebody was like drunk as hell somewhere and was like, yo, this would be a bomb. What if we had a tiger running around LA? That'd be dope. Franklin calls Jerome and lets him know that he's safe, he's stuck, and he needs someone to come get him. Jerome and them let the family know that he's good. Stash the money. That they're gonna go get him. They return. Jerome and them go find him, and Franklin's being very merciful. He does not kill the kid. He's like, yo, you a clever mother. He leaves him in the trunk. He just drops the keys in there. Figure out how to get out of there. He does not kill him. I don't know if it's because he's a kid or if he just doesn't want to do that, but he doesn't. He gets in the car and they go back to go get Uso, who Uso never thought he was going to see Franklin again. He didn't believe that he trusted him, and vice versa. They didn't really trust each other. Not fully, but they save Uso, and Franklin asks Uso, what do you want to do with the two folks that were still there at the store, the shop, waiting for them? And Franklin's like, hitting him a gun, and Uso's like, nah, I'm good. And Franklin's like, well, it's your lucky day. He does not take the two folks out. I don't know if that's going to come back to bite them, but because they are known, I feel like you may not know them by face, and you may not hang out in those neighborhoods, and they probably will never go back to that neighborhood again, so you may not see them again. But you just left three of those alive, while two of them are now dead. So retribution may be coming back your way. Another of many people who are going to be trying to come after Franklin, starting to get like a treasure trove. You'll see more at the end. In the car, this is one of the most poignant moments, is that Franklin and Uso admit to each other they didn't trust each other. And now they do. Now there's a bond that the two of them have that even if Teddy does try to come back and sort of break them up or like pit them against each other, they've gone through something so strong that night that I feel like if it comes down to and Uso has to choose between Teddy and Franklin, or vice versa, Franklin has to choose between Teddy and Uso, they're going to choose each other because Teddy has sort of sat this one out. He has not been a part of this. They don't trust him. But Franklin lets Uso know that first drop that they had, that he was being watched. And he can see on his face that Uso had no clue. Uso and Franklin go back to the spot. Mama says he's trying to stitch them up. He's taking shots of some type of tequila, some clear liquor. Franklin still has his code of not drinking. My man's like, yo, if there's ever a night you gonna give that up, this is one of them. But he doesn't. He's patching himself. They're getting patched up. Uso's family comes. His girl comes. Is angry at him, but is also happy to see him, and they ride off. Franklin tells V, go home. be there in a second, but I got something to look up because they're trying to figure out who still is responsible for this. All signs point to Peaches because there's only a couple of people who know this spot. Peaches was his right hand. He was always with him at every single leg of this. And so Franklin's like, well, I got one way to tell you who can do this. There's only two people who know the spot. So he takes everybody to the stash house that he had that only he and Peaches knew. And everything's ransacked. Everything's gone. And so it's now official that Peaches was responsible for this. That sends Jerome into a spiral because Jerome feels sort of at fault for all of this. Jerome is the one who brought Peaches on board. He was right-hand man for Jerome. And though they had not been as close as they were when they first started, because he's now sort of been with Franklin all the time, he feels that this happened, this hit on his girl, on his sister, his nephew, his nephew's kid, and future baby mama, and B, is all on him. So he's just, you can see it seething on him to the point where they have a meet with one of their contacts, and they start pushing up about where's the drop, where's the stuff. Jerome ain't hearing it. Jerome beats that boy to a pulp. It's clear that things are becoming sort of a bit unhinged. Franklin gets home after seeing the spot being ransacked. He's like, I just need to get some rest. I need to sleep. He gets home to go holler at V, and V's gone. V leaves a note. Now, what we learn is that the note says that she just can't be around him. Not saying that it's over, but she can't stay there. She doesn't feel safe enough to stay there. She's getting away, which does not help in the aid of me not thinking she has something to do with this because she's playing it safe, but it's clear that she does actually have a child. I think she's thinking of this as a mom who is trying to protect her cub. And the best way to do that is I need to separate myself as much as I possibly can from all this dangerous shit because I know what happens next. I know this is not going to get better until more bloodshed happens. So they have the sonogram the next morning. He still shows up, but that's when she lets him know, like, I just can't, I still love you and I just can't be around you. So for now, I will only see you at work. That's to protect this and to protect everything, but that's what has to happen. In that, Franklin has a conversation with Avi and he's like, I just need protection for her. So can I get a couple of people on her? He's like, yeah, of course, I got you. An interesting thing, one of my favorite scenes about this episode was two, because this is one and then I'll get on my other, which happens at the very end, is that Franklin and Avi have a heart-to-heart. And in that, Avi is like, I've always seen that you are that you could do anything. Anything you ever put your mind to, you could do it. Which is a dangerous thing to do, be able to do. He's like, for me, there's only one thing I do. I go from war to war to war. I know my lane. I don't have any kids. I know what my purpose is for. You don't know what your purpose is, but you can do whatever. There is no, nothing that can stop you. Your war is internal. And until you get out of your own way, you're going to always have this block because you could be the greatest this, you could be the greatest drug dealer, you could be the greatest. You have so much for you, Franklin. And it's probably the first time that anyone's ever kind of hit him with that type of thing. It's crazy to see what Franklin has become since being that scared kid who just kind of got in and is like, all right, this is snowballing to what he is now. And obviously, I saw who you were, and I see who you've become, and this is great. But I don't think this is the end for you. And it's a pretty poignant moment to kind of get smacked in the face, a little bit more of a reality of you need to find a way out. You have things that are for you, that are here, that are on the table, that are in front of you, tangible to get out, and you have a family. Take the out and get out of there and go do something else because you're better than this. Franklin reconvenes with the team and Jerome and them all, and they send Tweedledee and Tweedledee out to go try to find out what's going on. To sort of put their ear to the street, and what they find out, what comes back to them is that Kane has been released from prison. Kevin, for those of you who don't remember, is that third triangle tier of the original starting group of Franklin, Leon, and Kevin. And Kevin had a cousin, Delroy, who at the very beginning tried to sell drugs in a location that he shouldn't have and was stabbed and killed. And then Kevin sort of lost his shit and became untrustworthy and sort of unhinged and sort of messed up the fabric of what Franklin was trying to build. He stole the formula from Lorena and Uso and kind of was like, I'm going to do it and do it on my own. And Franklin took him out and killed him. Killed one of his best friends, to keep the business alive. Cain is his brother. It's funny because Cain and Abel, I know they did that on purpose. Cain is his brother. After spending a bit in prison, he's aware he's been festering, he's been doing all of this. He's out, and it all clicks to Franklin immediately. He's like, well, then I know what this is. And they're like, Leon is like, yeah, it's been about 5 years. This all tracks. So it does lead sort of, and it comes up in the conversation, it sort of does lead to that Peaches gave away all of this information, but it is not clear if Peaches was tortured or just gave it up willingly. He's gone. He is missing. They can't find a trace of this dude. And while I do think that we all believe that his Peaches was sick and got AIDS or HIV, I don't know if Cain killed him or tortured him or may have put him in a better situation. Like, hey, we're going to pay for this. We're going to take care of. Like, I don't know. I'd imagine just because of the way that he was sick, and I think they're going to try to hit home that he had HIV. I don't necessarily know if he's dead yet, but he might be real close to it because Cain is a terrifying man. Franklin and Leon go to meet Cain in an open field where he's watching like a young game, a young little league game. They all know each other. It's clear that these 3 plus 4 with Kevin and not being there have a familiarity with each other. He was like, yo, you was like my little, you know what, all when we were young. And I know, like, kind of a line that Kevin said when he was dead, you're not built for this, Saint. Cain kind of says, I know who you really are. Like, I know who you really are. And I like Leon makes more sense for doing what's happening than this. But yeah, I did all this. I came after everybody. And it's clear that he has a love and a care for, like, Franklin's mom and whatnot. And so he kind of is like, yeah, that's my bad for trying to, like, wipe out everybody. For just trying to, I was trying to prove a point. But next time, I'm coming straight for you. Like, I'm going to come for you and you alone. I think it is frightening that the world of people who know that Franklin has a kid is small. So I hope that doesn't get back to Cain because I feel like that is a almost intense and insanely vicious way to get back at Franklin. Just take her off the board and you basically take his seed off. But it is a very tense scene. There's so much in that one scene that could build for the rest of this season that I'm like, this was the point of all of this. This was the point of these 2 parts. This is the point of doing the Warriors, the Tigers thing, old girl fingering herself next to Teddy, which I'll get on in a minute. All of that was built around this one scene and where we go for the rest of this season. It is going to be intense. Franklin's going to have to watch his back all the time. So it's going to be this sort of chess match where Franklin is, I need to do everything possible to get Cain off the board. But Cain, who has as many touches as Franklin does, is going to try and get Franklin off the board. And there are a lot of people that Cain knows, that Franklin knows. There's a familiarity that they share people, that you're not going to know who's on what side. Franklin has the Avi, the Leons, the Jerome, and all of those folks. But the street folks couldn't go either way. So there could be a lot of flipping that happens back and forth. Meanwhile, on top of that, you got C.R.A.S.H coming in. You got the police, just the normal police coming in. You got the feds with Teddy. You got CIA. You got whoever the hell is coming in on Sisty. There's just a lot closing in on this world, and it's going to make for a pretty intense back end few episodes of Snowfall. I'm ready. I will say this. I was going to mention before the tiger. They drive by later in the episode when they are finally collected and have their money back, and they see the tiger just roaming the streets. It is clear that is a parallel to Cain being released from prison and kind of just being this wild animal that is now just loose on the streets. Like, that's, may not be, but I think that's what they're sort of going for, and I think now all hell's going to break loose for everybody involved. Last piece of this episode was Teddy. We get a brief moment with Teddy and Parisa sort of licking their wounds. Parisa is in this for a lot of reasons, and we still didn't quite know why the whole sexual touching thing happens. We get a little bit of an answer here. Teddy doesn't understand it either, but she tries to patch him up, and basically, Teddy owes her $250,000. She's now asking for 500 because she's like, "Hey, you had 3 kilos of coke in your trunk. I'm gonna need 500 grand." She's like, "Oh, okay, but I can tell that there's something else you want." And she's like, "There is," and she straddles him. She want that D. That's what she want, y'all. She's like, "When you were my informant, you were married and you were about the job and all of this, but now you're not, and I want you." Sure, sure. I don't know if it's a setup. I don't know if she's going to be what does him in, but um, that is a crazy twist to have on this. And it's going to be crazy to just see how Teddy sort of enters back into the world of Franklin now that all of this has kind of happened. There's a lot of heat on this world, and the CIA or FBI ties don't matter to Kane when he's talking about family. Like anytime he sees Teddy or anybody that's associated with that Franklin Triangle, he's gonna try to take them out, especially if they are around him when he is trying to do the deed. I know a lot of people had issues with these two parts, with the tone kind of flipping, the tiger thing, and all of that stuff. But I think at the heart of it, there was a very intense episode in that first part, and then a very satisfying conclusion on the back end. That when you put them together, it does work. It is not perfect for a two-parter, but it does work and leads to what I think is going to be an extremely intense and exciting back end of this season of Snowfall. What did you guys think about the latest episode of Snowfall called Iliad Part 2? Go leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI, or you can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name that is on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that plays podcasts. We are there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.